Hey YouTube. Last weekend I ended up getting first place at an OTS championship with Dracotail Dragonmaid. I figured I would take this opportunity to kind of give y'all a more in-depth explanation of why I chose some of the cards I chose to play and why I chose some of the ratios I did. But since the deck profile is already out there, I figure I may as well, just jump right into it. 3 Femena, 3 Lucius. It's your quick play poly and your Stratos. There's no reason to play any less than 3. 2 Malulu. I think 2 is perfectly fine in this build. You really don't want to be normal summoning him, because you have much better normal summons, whether it's the Lucius or whether it's the Dragonmaid normal summons. Usually you want to be summoning him off of seals, so you really don't want to play too many that you're going to end up bricking on 3 or 4 normal summons. I played 2 of the big dragons. I think I probably should have played 2 Urgula. 2 Urgula and 1 Pan. Because Xiao's materials are a level 5 or higher dragon monster, plus a Dragonmaid monster. So these are perfect materials for her, especially if you're making her turn 0 or on your opponent's turn off of Femena. Because it means you get a negate and also you get a spell trap pop or a monster pop, which is really, really powerful, especially if your opponent has just started to set up their board. I played 3 Rahu and 3 Kitu. Obviously they're both 3-ofs, extremely good cards. Brand of Fusion is shocker, really good. And then 1 of each of the traps. For the Dragonmaids, we run 3 Parlor. On summon, she sends any Dragonmaid card from your deck to the grave. Usually you are going to be sending Lorpar. And then you are going to banish both of these, 1 from your field and 1 from your grave. Do Fusion Summon Lady and use her effect to special summon Chamber from your deck. Chamber's effect, on summon, she can add any Dragonmaid spell or trap from your deck to your hand. And we have 2 of those. We have 1 spell, which is Dragonmaid Changeover, which is a polymerization for dragons that can target a Dragonmaid monster to add itself and that monster back to your hand, which means that if it's in the graveyard and you have, say, Chamber on field, you can activate, target, and then suddenly you have a polymerization and a monster in hand, which is really, really good for Dracotails. And then the final Dragonmaid card in the main deck is Dragonmaid Tidying. Dragonmaid Tidying, it has 2 good effects. Its on-field effect, when it's activated, you can target a dragon monster you control and 1 card in your opponent's field or grave and return both of them to the hand. And then while it's in the graveyard, you can banish it to special summon any Dragonmaid monster from your hand or grave. So it's good recovery the turn after you use it to bounce something. I know it's just 6 Dragonmaid cards for the main deck, and that doesn't seem like a lot, but they come up the perfect amount. You really don't want to draw too many of them. You don't want to draw only Dragonmaid cards unless it's only Parlor. And 6 is really just a good number of some independently good cards and some cards that kind of need other cards to be good, like Lorpar. Moving on to the non-engine, we are going to start off with 1 Nib. In retrospect, I wish I had played 3, because Nibiru really excels in situations where the Dracotail engine feels very weak. Because the Dracotail engine is very strong in regards to 1 or 2 monster choke points, but very weak when your opponent can summon 3, 4, 5 monsters very quickly and easily. Situations like, for example, with the new Yummy deck, when they activate Obedience Schooled, a lot of the time you can hold your Femena effect for a choke point, but then if they have any other card in their hand, you're kind of out of luck, because they can just keep playing, versus Nibiru, if you hold it with, say, Femena to Fusion Summon, not only do you get to take away all those little bodies, you then have the Femena available still to be that interruption for their follow-up. So I think that Nibiru is probably just better as a 3-of in this deck than a 1-of. I kind of regret only playing 1. The next one is Magnammute. Card is insane. Adds your Dragonmaid cards, adds certain Dracotail cards, cards like Malulu, or the big dragons are very good targets to add with this, because they just help you start immediately board breaking on your opponent's turn. As well, you can loop this back to your hand, and if you've ever activated multiple Magnammutes in a game, you understand how powerful that feels, just how strong this card is. I would consider playing Druisworm as well. Just an additional Bestial, depending on the format and depending on kind of what the best decks are looking like. I think this card is really, really good into Yummy when they go to revive off of their field spell, for sure. Then 3 Fuolos and 2 Filia. These cards are particularly strong in this deck because you can draw into not only non-engine, but if you draw into your engine, it functions as much stronger non-engine, and you're much more likely to get the ball rolling on your opponent's first turn rather than needing to wait around for your turn to start playing. I think 5 is a good number. It's not too many. It makes good. It was good for the side deck that I have for the event, but I think in the future I would play 6, and just kind of adjust my side numbers accordingly to however many I'm playing. Then we have 3 Ash Blossom. I think this card is kind of whatever. I don't think you need this card to answer Mulch Armies in this deck, because very often you can give your opponent 1, maybe even 0 draws if you have Filia in hand, and they chain it to your Rahu or something, and still end on your full board with no issues. But this card, because the format is so wide, I feel like you probably need to play it in the main deck just because it is so decent into such a wide variety of decks, even if it's not the best choice for any one deck in particular. Then 2, Ghost Ogre. Ghost Ogre was a pick specifically for the Vanquish Soul Canine matchup. For the Vanquish Soul part of the deck, you can hit the field spell, which denies them the trap, and then it also denies them the search. And then for the Canine aspect, when they start playing on your turn, if you Ogre their Lupus, they can't actually XYZ summon because Lupus specifically states it has to be used as XYZ material. As well, this just has niche applications against other decks. It's decent against Yummy. It's okay against Malice. As long as it's paired with other cards, I think this card is generally fine, and I think it's pretty good against VSK9, which is why I chose to play it. And then for the last 3 cards, it's 3 Effect Failure. I probably wouldn't play this card again. I would more than likely cut it for more copies of Nib, possibly another Bestial, or maybe one of the main deck names for the Dracotail engine. I wanted to play Veiler because it's just, again, the format's very wide. It's just good generically into a lot of different things, even if it's not necessarily the best choice for any one particular deck. It also doubles as a spellcaster for some of your fusions in your extra deck, but that really doesn't come up that much, and frankly, I think that this card would be better served. This slot would be better served by other non-engine, like Nibiru, Bestials, or maybe even more Dracotail engine. For the main deck, it's just 40. You really want to keep it 40. You want to see your Dracotail cards as often as possible. You want to see your Charmies as often as possible. You don't really want to go too far over 40, even though you have so many cards that you don't necessarily want to draw in combination with multiple normal summons. For the extra deck, 2 Xiao. I think that 2 Xiao isn't mandatory, but I would rather play 2 Xiao than not, because a lot of the time you make your first Xiao, and then if your opponent, their first action on their turn is to hit it with a preemptive imperm, or to droplet it, or whatever, to stop your other effects, you can then use Filia to make another Xiao using the already spent Xiao, because it is the level 5 or higher, or it is the Dragonmaid, depending on whichever part you're missing. This card is just an Omni Negate. It's very strong. During the standby phase, if you still have Chamber in your graveyard, you can summon it back, and then you get to search Tidying for free, which is very strong. Then Filia Regis. This card is just a quick play banish. It banishes from field or grave. If it banishes from field, you have to return a dragon monster from your field to your hand, which, if it's the only thing you have to bounce it, but if you have a Dragonmaid monster, you can just bounce it back to hand and use it again next turn. This card was very fine. It doesn't come up that often, but when it comes up, it's a very, very strong tool in your arsenal to have available to outboards or have that last extra interruption into your opponent's board. Then we have 2 Dracotail Arthalion. This is how you loop your hand traps. This is just, He's just a big guy. He's just a beefy 3k guy who can come back once before being banished. This card is very strong, but I don't think you need more than 2. I think the only reason you need more than 2 in hybrid builds is if something else goes wrong. Either you can't find your other engine, or you're too aggressive with your fusions and you don't properly manage your targets. I don't think you need more than 2 in most cases, and if you do, there are other fusion targets that you can summon. Then we have more Dragonmaid cards. You play 2 house. You have to play 2 house, even if you only play 1 Xiao, because Xiao must summon a house Dragonmaid from your extra deck after it negates. And if you don't have a house Dragonmaid in your extra deck, that means you just can't negate. And very often, you summon Xiao on your first turn, and then your opponent does something, you put the Xiao back in extra, the house comes out, and then if you're to use this to summon the Xiao again, you don't have the negate anymore unless this other house is sitting in your extra deck. So you just kind of have to play 2. It sucks that it eats so many extra deck slots, but I think it's worth it for having such an easily accessible Omni Negate. Secretarian Dragon. This card would be 5,000 times cooler if it didn't have the random floodgate effect that makes the mirror absolutely miserable. But I still think this card is pretty sick otherwise. It targets a dragon and a spellcaster in your grave, and you special summon one of them, and then put the other on the bottom of the deck. So this lets you recycle, say, a Xiao that ended up in the grave as fusion material. It lets you recycle your Dragontail card, your Dracotail cards. It lets you recycle your Dragonmaid cards. This card is fantastic all around for this deck. And I mean, you can play 1 or 2. I think 1 is fine. I never really needed more than 1. I played 1 mirror, and I just summoned it both times, and I won the game on the spot. So, 1 Chaos Star Source Dragon. This card came up a single time in 8 rounds. It's just a pop that's a dragon fusion. You really don't make this very often, but it's kind of just a nice thing to have because you do have a little bit of extra space in the extra deck that, you know, you might just want to fill with an extra utility card. You could play other cards in that slot, but personally, I think this card is just very fine. Not too good, not too bad. Next up we have Ladies Dragonmaid. This is the most recent piece of support that the deck has gotten, and she is absolutely incredible. Fantastic custom card. She is a contact fusion by banishing 2 Dragonmaid monsters with the same attribute but different levels, 1 from your field and 1 from your grave, which means that Parlor is a 1-card combo. When she is special summoned, you can special summon a Dragonmaid monster from your deck, which means that when you make her off of Parlor, you immediately summon the Chamber, which gets you the polymerization from your deck to your hand. And during each standby phase, you can fusion summon 1 dragon fusion monster by using monsters from your banished or face-up field, which means that your Dracotail fusions, after they revive themselves and are banished, she can just put them back to make a new fusion instead, and then you have that back and you have an additional fusion. Usually you're just going to be using her to make Xiao, just to have an Omni Negate available at all times. And she is honestly everything that the Dragonmaid deck could have wanted, outside of maybe a few non-normal summons, but honestly I don't think I could have designed a custom card better than this one. Then we have the 1 Gulma. This card is interesting. I don't think it's too crazy, but it does kind of goad your opponent into making some maybe suboptimal plays, so that they try to prevent you from getting the pop off of its effect. Because it's like a Paleozoic monster where it is a quick effect trigger when you activate a Dracotail card or effect. So you'll go Famina effect to fusion summon while this is on the field, and your opponent might chain a cross out, or they might chain something else preemptively that they maybe wanted to save for another time just so that you can't get the pop of a card they control. I don't think you need more than 1. It's perfectly fine. Having a total of 3 Dracotail fusions is perfectly fine for this deck. Typhen, it's Typhen. It never came up, but just in case to have as a backup button going second. And then 1 SP. It's SP, you really don't make it that much either. But it's just kind of the best generic removal link. And then Spheres. This card is one of the dragon cards of all time. It is absolutely incredible how good this card is and how well it's held up throughout the years. Fantastic interruption. Turns into Malulu, which is another interruption. Very, very good. And then for the final card in the extra deck, 1 Spirit with Eyes of Blue. This was originally a Striker Dragon, but then I realized that you need a way to turn your spellcasters into dragons, and this is exactly this. This is the only card that does that. So you need to play this over the Striker Dragon. The cost of 700 attack, you get to turn one of your spellcasters into a dragon and makes fears, you know? So that's all for the main and extra. For the side deck, I really wasn't sure what to decide for this event. Obviously, it's a brand new format, brand new decks in the format. We really don't know what's going to be super popular. So this was just kind of a thrown together thing of cards I figured would work generally with the deck. The second Nib should have been in the main deck. Third Filia should have been in the main deck. Third Ogre shouldn't have been in the deck at all. Then for Malice, obviously just the 3 Lancia. It's very cool that you could just loop this card on them turn after turn after turn. So a lot of the time if you draw this, as long as you have a play and they don't say open Ash, Impulse, Fua, whatever, extra cards to try and pull them out of the bad situation, you can just Lancia them for multiple turns in a row and there's nothing they can do. 3 Droll and Lockbird. Mitsurugi is very scary. The Ryzeal variants, the combo variants are very scary. You kind of just want to have this because it stops a lot of really degenerate things. We have the 1 Duster. This card is very good. It's good into your worst matchup, which is Vanquisol. It's good into a lot of random matchups. It's good into Malice. It's just a generically very strong card. A lot of decks just happen to set cards or happen to want to have field spells up, and this card takes them off the field very easily. I think you should probably be playing Lightning Storm just to have more mass back row removal because those decks are kind of scary. And then I played the 5 Solemns. In hindsight, I really wish that these in particular were a thrust package. So the 3 thrust and the 2 targets. And the targets I would have chosen would be D-Barrier and probably a Daruma Karma Cannon. Possibly Artifact Sanctum, depending on how the rest of my side panned out. But these were fine. I ran the 5 so that I could take out the 5 Charmies and put the 5 in going first. You can do the same thing with the thrust package, depending on what targets you want to play. So now I'll kind of get on to a few of the cards that I either wished I had played or thought about playing and didn't. The first one is Cross Sheep. I think that card is fine. You could probably play it in the deck. I don't think you need it. I think it really only comes up in these sort of YouTube combo tutorials that don't often happen in real games. The card seems very fine, but I personally don't like it that much. Another card I considered playing was Phantasme. I think this card is good into Yummy. This card is good into Malice, obviously. This card is good randomly into a bunch of different stuff. It cycles your hand. It gets you better chances to get into Thymina. It gives you targeting negate for some reason. This card seems very fine, and I would probably play it in the future. I also thought about playing the 1 copy of Arch Nemesis Protos. No flag, no nothing, just raw dog the Protos. This deck can manipulate the different attributes in your grave really, really easily. And you obviously run the Charmies, and you just can use them as dead fusion material. So that's immediately getting you an extra attribute in grave. You don't really want to banish your Dracotail cards that much, but I think this card is so broken that it is probably worth just tossing the 1 in, and if you draw it, you draw it. For the extra deck, a card I 100% wish I played was Mysterion. This card would have made 2 of my matchups substantially easier. Just the mass banish effect that this has is kind of absurd. I can't believe I completely blanked and forgot this card existed. If I were to do it again, I would absolutely play this over the Typhen. And then the final card, or I guess the set of cards, would be Feners. I would absolutely consider playing Fener in the future. I think this card is just generically very good. It's really good against the canine cards because you just summon the Fener effect, and then you start playing with your Dracotail cards. If they ever summon a canine card, you get to banish it face down. Very, very good. It also just, you summon it and you get another monster in a hand immediately, which means that you're not losing advantage by just dropping a generically strong card onto the field. It's an out to Herald because you can summon and then attempt to swing over the Herald. Then if they try to use the yummy Link effect to synchro, you get the Fener effect to banish the Herald, which they either have to accept or negate and destroy, which means that you're no longer under the Herald floodgate and can actually play unimpeded. All in all, I was very happy with how this deck performed. It's exactly kind of what I wished it was, which it feels like should all if it was designed in 2025. Even though there are some changes I would make, I think that this variant is definitely worth considering, especially if you like the mechanics or if you like the aesthetic. It's very fun. It's straightforward, but allows for kind of a depth of understanding with the different cards and rewards good fundamentals in gameplay. Thank you all so much for watching, and good luck with your games.